All right, let's get started. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Welcome to my presentation about commerce decoupled. I will be talking about Nextjs and the commerce API module and how you can use that in combination. First, a quick overview what I'm going to show you today. So first I will give a quick introduction about myself. Then I will do an explanation of what decoupled commerce means and how you can use it. Then I will show you how you set it up on the Drupal side, and I will also go through the front end and what you can leverage there. And then I will present you a a prototype with static product pages, which I have implemented for this presentation. Next, I will explain how you can leverage the decoupled router module and how this plays into this ecosystem. And I will also cover what the Commerce API module provides and how you can use that. And in the end, I will present a video of a fully fledged commerce checkout workflow that we used for a customer of ours. So I'm David Peherstorfer. I'm based in the mountainous region of Vorarlberg in the west of Austria. I'm also known as Critic on Drupal.org, and I really like climbing, hiking, and do all mountain stuff. I have a big interest in APIs, and I really love NeoVim. I'm working for NetNode, which is a digital agency based in the beautiful city of Lucerne. And we are specialized on decoupled solutions. So we are using Nextjs on the front end and Drupal on the back end. And last year, we built a web shop for a Swiss spa, which you will see the video of in the last part of the presentation. So what is decoupled commerce? Drupal is really great for data modeling and data storage because it provides a lot of entities and you can just click together entity types in the backend. And you don't need to take care of CRUD operations, create, read, update, and delete operations. This is all covered by Drupal. And then there's also the popular commerce module, which actually provides some entity types out of the box. For example, the products, product variations, orders, cards, shipments, payments, etc. Then the next part that is really helpful in a decoupled commerce ecosystem is the Commerce API module, which exposes these entities through a JSON API. So you can add, for example, products to a cart. I will be talking a bit more about this later on in the presentation. For rendering our webshop in a decoupled way, we chose Nextjs, and especially because it has this static site generation feature, which makes pages really quick. If a user goes to a page, this page can be cached in a CDN, and it will almost be instantly visible to the user. Nextjs is really popular in the JavaScript ecosystem, and it's also well supported by the React team. So how do we set up the Drupal site? You need the commerce module, you need the commerce API module, and for the Commerce API module, you also need to configure that you want to accept JSON API create, read, update, and delete operations so that you can use the CRUD operations. And we are also using the decoupled router for the static site generation. And for our prototype, I had to apply this patch because there was some problem with resolving the UUIDs for product entities. And then you can already start using the commerce module and set up your products and product variations. And what to use on the front end? We decided on Nextjs. And for building JSON API requests on the front end, there's actually a really cool module from the Drupal community, which is the Drupal JSON API params module. You can basically build queries for the JSON API using this module. So if you want to apply some filters to your query, or if you want to get some specific fields from an entity, it's a really handy abstraction to do this. Then there is also the Drupal Next project from the Drupal community. This is really handy because it comes with a lot of tools to query the JSON API, but it doesn't support Next.js 13 and especially the React app folder, which is a new feature. So we didn't use that for our prototype. For this presentation, I have implemented a small prototype. And this prototype basically consumes the JSON API, the Commerce API, and the Decoupled Router API. So we have configured basically 2 products in the backend with each a variation, and these products also have a URL alias that can be used from the front end. The prototype allows you to view the static product pages, and you can add products to the cart. You can update the cart, so the amount of the order items, and you can delete order items from the cart again. The whole Commerce API workflow can be much more powerful. You can do a full checkout workflow also with payment, etc. And I will show this in the end. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the decoupled router. This is how we handle product pages, because we have in the front end we have dynamic routes. So for example, there is /react-bootcamp, which would be a product on the back end, and we need to resolve this somehow on the front end. And for this, the decoupled router comes in really handy. So the decoupled router exposes this API here, so router/translate-path, and you can send a URL query parameter to this route, which would be React Bootcamp in this example, and then you get back a response with basic entity information, but you can see it's really just like the ID, type, and so on. And then you need to do another request to get the entity information. For example, if you want to have the price, the description, and so on. You could use the sub-request module for this to put both requests into one. And we didn't do that for the prototype. Then this should show you how the static site generation works. This is basically the Next.js build step. So I've run here npm run build, and you can see here that 2 paths are statically created on the front end. And how does this work? Basically, we are querying all the published products from the front end and are collecting the paths of those products. And then we feed this path into the generate static params function from Next.js. And Next.js then queries this during the build step, creates this pages statically, and they can from then on be cached in a CDN. And why are we doing this? the reason for this is that product overview pages, they don't change often. So you have the description and you have the title and the price, and it's just quicker to load than in the end for the user. Then there is the Commerce API module on the backend again. This is a really great module that exposes the entities of the commerce module. So you also have the CRUD operations for orders. So you can add, remove, update, and delete order items in the cart. And then you can also transition the cart to orders. And these state transitions of orders, they also trigger events which you can subscribe to that you might know from the commerce module. And it also provides a really nice workflow for anonymous cards, which I will talk about in the next slide. So how does the cart assignment work? Basically, there are two ways how you can have a cart in this workflow. You either send an authenticated call, so that means the user is logged in the front end, and you send a OAuth token to the backend, and Drupal will provide the correct cart to the user. Or you use the commerce cart token. This is a random token that you can create on the front end, and then you send this with all add, delete, and so on requests, and Drupal will then use this identifier to get the correct cart back. You can store this in the front end in local storage. And what's also possible is, but you need some custom code for that, if you have a checkout in the commerce workflow and you want to assign, like if the user registers during the checkout, you can assign the anonymous card to the afterwards logged in registered user. But you need some custom code for that. This is an example request to the Commerce Cart API. You can see that it also goes under subdirectory JSON API, and then you have /cart/add. So this is used for adding a product variation to the cart, which then is an order item on the cart. You need to send the product variation type and also the product variation UUID. Make sure that you have the commerce cart token or the authentication header set if you do this request, otherwise it won't work. And what's really nice on this request is the meta properties that you have. So you can send a quantity, how many products you want to add. You can omit this because the default is 1. So there will always be at least one added. Then you have the combine field. That is a Boolean field. And if you set this to true, that means if you already have a product of type React Bootcamp, for example, on your order, and you add another one, and it's set to true, then they will be combined into one order item. So you have two React Bootcamps. If you set it to false, you have one React Bootcamp and one React Bootcamp. Can be helpful for some workflows. And then there's the fields meta property, which allows you to add additional fields on order items. So, for example, if you are doing a reservation during adding the product to the cart and you want to store the reservation date, you can create the reservation date field on the order item type and then send this in this request from the front end. You can find the documentation about all these CRUD operations on drupal.org in the Commerce API documentation. Okay, now I'm going to show you a video of the prototype and I will explain a little. Let's put the quality up. Okay. Yeah, here we have, this is basically the homepage, and then there's two product pages that we have. It's the React Bootcamp that you can buy in this shop and the PHP bootcamp. And then we also have a cart. Okay, then let's play it. And you can see the product pages are loaded really quickly. So I built this before. This is not the development server running, but the build version. And then I'm actually adding a product, and I show you the request here. There's a success message. Here you can see the stored cart token. And this is also sent with the request. So here you will first see the URL that we used. And then in the headers, there's this commerce cart token, which is read from the local storage. And the payload is just the ID, the quantity. Here you see the meta property and the type. And you get back an order item actually. So you would not need to reload the order if you want to display it, but you would already get that back. For this prototype, we have built in another request to get the cart. If you click on the cart, and here you can see one React Bootcamp was added with 200 euros. And in the backend, you saw that first there was no cart, then I reloaded and it created a new one. So there was none existing. And here you also have the React Bootcamp in your cart. Okay. So. All right, next I want to show you a fully fledged checkout process that we used for a client of ours. So this was the Swiss spa, the Tamina Therme, and they are using, they have the feature of flexible vouchers. So you can go to the page and you can add an amount for your voucher that you want to order. For example, if you want to gift someone. And I will show the addition of this product to the cart. Then I will quickly also show how shipping and the invoice addresses are changed there. And we also have some conditions on like the amount of the total order. And depending on that, the shipping changes. And then you have the order detail overview. And in the end, the Datatrans payment provider, which is offsite. This is a Swiss payment provider. Yeah, let's take a look at the video. I will go full screen here again. Okay. So the quality is up. Nice. Yes, here you see you can change the amount, you can add a flexible price for this order item. I chose 80 francs. Then I add this to the cart. And I go to the cart or to the checkout. And here you can now see the shipping. So this means shipping. And this is printed home. Because printed home is selected here, it shows 0 francs at the moment. And when I switch that to shipping, it changes to 650. And then we also have a condition. If it's above 150 francs, it goes down to 0 again. So you can create such workflows with this Commerce API. And then I complete the checkout. There's the guest registration, where I fill in the data. It's test data, but I have to adapt the postal code to a Swiss format. And then it goes to the order detail page. I accept the AGBs. And here, this is the data provider now. So there's a redirect. And I enter some test credentials. And then after payment is successful, we return back to the Termina Terme site, and we should see the success page. So this is an example of what's possible with this ecosystem. Okay. Up. Yes. You can find the prototype under my GitHub, and there's also a README on how to set it up. So if you want to try it out, take a look at the code, click around. If you have any questions about the prototype or about this topic, I'm happy to discuss this on LinkedIn. And we can also, if you have some question, I can take some now.
Hi, thank you for the session. I have a question about cache invalidation for this statically generated pages. So let's say you have 2 pages in the example, but imagine you can have a quite huge product catalog, and you have changed only one product. So what happens, and can you handle only partial update?
Actually, you can handle this with Nextjs. So there's this feature, incremental static regeneration, I think. So when a user visits the page, it automatically triggers a reload of the data. So it would be like a server-side rendering, and it fetches the new data and creates a new static version of this page. Yes, yes. Yeah. I'm sorry? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Hello, thanks for the presentation. Could you touch briefly on how you handle authentication in this setup? Like you use Nextauth and connect with Drupal's users. How does that work?
Yeah, we're using the OAuth module in the backend, simple OAuth, and in the frontend we use the Nextauth package, and this works really well.
Is there something ready for that to work with Drupal, or is that a custom implementation?
Yeah, it's custom.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, since you mentioned the JSON API, have you experimented with the Drupal state module, which is meant to be an SDK for JSON API for various front-end technologies?
Sorry, I didn't get the last part.
The Drupal state module, I think that's how it's called.
The Drupal state?
Yes.
No, I haven't tried that. Thanks. Any other questions?
I have a question regarding the callback when the payment is done. So you showed that that page was Next.js, yes, as I assume. And then when there is a webhook from the data that runs, so it first goes to Drupal and then the page updates. Or it just goes to the Next.js domain?
No, the webhook goes to Drupal, and then we redirect from Drupal to our front end again. So we need to check if the order was really paid with Drupal to make it secure. And if that is the case, we can redirect the user then.
And then one more question: how more complex the prototype will be if there are more variations for the product? Because then you can't use anymore the static page. How then, like, what effort would be to have
That depends on the requirements.
Yeah, like for you, for example, that for this there will be PHP 7.1, PHP 7.4 variation.
Yeah, it depends how you want to. Do you mean like how you display it, or?
Yeah, first how you display and how you fetch the data, like about how many variations you have. The price will also vary. Maybe
Okay.
images will vary. You know, like normal variations when you change. Then it changes a lot because, for example, description is different, image is different. There are like sizes for t-shirts. I don't know, like something like this.
Yeah, I mean, for the JSON API, you can just include the variations with one call. So when you request a product, so that is quite small. It depends how far you want to go really with your product variations on the front end, how you want to display it.
But for example, in your term page, are there any examples or just this good shine and then you?
We have different reservations, for example, where you have a calendar and you can book a spot, and this is then sent to the backend. We have retail products. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff possible.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And for everyone who thinks why there is for page, next commerce API in the link.
Oh, here.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thanks. Oops.
Hi. Just quick question. What convinced you the most to use JSON API compared to, I don't know, GraphQL, REST, or if you even consider using any other stuff?
I've worked before with the GraphQL module, with the 4.x one. We decided to go with JSON API because it's in core basically and it's well supported, and also because the Commerce API leverages the JSON API, and in GraphQL you would need to write all your data producers, for example, and that puts a bit more work into the backend. Of course, for the JSON API you need to transform the data then on the front end and put it into a nice structure that you can use. So that was basically the reason there. Any other questions? Otherwise, thanks a lot for joining me. And have a great day.